Good afternoon, everyone. I, Sneha, on behalf of NEN and Vadhwani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this panel discussion and also introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. K. Srikrishna. He is an angel investor who's been an entrepreneur and a working professional alternately. In 1999, he founded his first company after working for 8 years in a large corporation and 3 years in 2 startups. He since founded a second startup and is on the advisory boards of 3 companies. He will moderate today's panel discussion. Before I hand over the floor to Mr. Srikrishna to introduce him to other panelists, a quick note to all our attendees. You will all be on mute. You can ask questions during Q&A. You are requested to raise your hand, which is given in the panel provided, to receive audio access. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you, Sneha. Appreciate that. We are quite excited here today to have Mukund Mohan and Dr. Pallab Bandyopadhyay here with us as the panelists. So that we can get right into it, I will give a very brief introduction and we'll get rolling here. Mukund Mohan is the CEO of Jivity, a leading social commerce company. He founded and sold BuzzGain, a leader in do-it-yourself PR to Meltwater in January 2010. He has founded and successfully sold multiple Silicon Valley startups in internet and enterprise software markets. Mukund's also held executive and management roles in Hewlett Packard, Inovis, Ariba, and Cisco. So I think today he is going to take, well, let me not steal their thunder, they will tell you what position each of them is taking. So Dr. Pallab Bandyopadhyay, we actually were in the same building at the same time, early in our career, currently heads the country HR function at Citrix India, and he's based out of Bangalore. A doctoral fellow in HRD from XLRI Jamshedpur and the Academy of Human Resource Development. Dr. Bandyopadhyay has also been trained at various human process and organization development interventions at NTL USA, as well as adult learning theories at Interactive Consultants Canada. Dr. Pallab has more than 24 years of professional experience in the areas of institution, organization, and human resource development. With that, I hand it off to Mukund to kick things off here. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to, this is Mukund, and I've been a serial entrepreneur before. I've worked at large companies and small, and I'm going to give you a quick perspective and tell you a couple of stories about why you should start a venture right now instead of taking a job. My first venture was when I was in actually 8th grade. I went to a friend's dad who lived fairly close to my house, and his problem was that he was not able to get a specific set of people that he needed to help him pick the tomatoes from his farm, which was about another 20 or so kilometers away from Bangalore at that point in time. So he took the two of us, me and Joan in San Francisco. Joan and me studied at the same school. We were classmates and batchmates. And he said, hey, why don't both of you guys just come with me and try and help me? We'll try and get all these tomatoes. So we went all the way there and we started helping him a little bit. 3 hours into the program, picking tomatoes, walking through lots of fields. He told us, listen, I've got a really good idea. Why don't you guys take these tomatoes and go sell it? Whatever money you make is yours. So that was my first foray into entrepreneurship, and I started building, if you will, my first company along with Johan. The thing I found out right then is I have nothing to lose, and neither do you. The point that you are right now in your career, and I would qualify your career right now as people that are just finishing or looking to finish or going to finish their studies. At this point in time is probably the most carefree that you will ever be, at least for the next X number of years before you get married and you have kids and you have responsibility and you have a lot of other pressures associated with growing up. But at this point in time, you have nothing to lose. And what makes it the best, number one, is the fact that you are not encumbered by experiences that you have had in your work career before. So there's nothing that you really think cannot be done. That's one of the biggest advantages that you have. So I always believe younger people have a tremendous advantage over people that are more experienced in the area of not having to worry about anything that they are tied to or any experiences that they've been clouded with. I'll repeat the statement that I heard from, I'm not sure who it was at Google. Somebody told me that the technology is changing so fast that nearly 60% of what you know today, what you learn today, what you know today, what you will learn will be useless in less than 6 months. And you can feel that already. I mean, about 5 years ago, none of us knew about Android and smartphones. In fact, less than that. about less than about 6 months ago, most of us didn't even know about Mixida and companies like that. So technology changes so rapidly that things are so dramatically fast that anyone with a lot of experience in those areas finds themselves to a large extent looking back at those experiences and trying to apply those same experiences to what they're presented with. So you guys do not have that baggage, as we call it. So keep going for it and try and build your own company. The second thing I learned was almost every time, even though your college professors and your teacher and very, very good people in the university taught you a lot of different things, the number one way to learn is actually by doing stuff. There's no other better way to learn. There's an old saying which goes, if you teach me something, I will learn 30%. If I teach somebody something, I will learn 60%. If I do something, I will learn 100%. So the best way to actually learn how to be an entrepreneur is by doing it, not by watching, not by staying in a big company, not by going to Plugged In, or not by going to Forbes, and not by going to Fortune, and not by reading Economic Times about articles of people like Sachin Bansal building a Flipkart, or any other person who's built a small or a large company before. The best way to actually be an entrepreneur and build something of value is by actually doing it. The third criteria I always almost adopt is, what's the worst thing that could happen? I always have this worst case scenario that I plan for. And for you guys, the worst scenario actually is that in a couple of years, your experience will be in a startup so valuable that you can go and get a job at any company at probably the same, if not more pay than you did before. So the worst case situation for most of you, even if you do fail in your startup and you fail not to be able to get it off the ground, is that you'll go get a job at a big company. You can always go and do that later on, is my point with this. The worst thing that could happen is in 2 years you say, okay, it didn't work out. I'm going to go and now join the company that I did not want to join when I graduated. The last thing that I would really keep your mind to is, most people try and set themselves goals. I'm sure that your parents, your professors, you yourself are setting goals for yourself. I want to graduate. I want to get more than 80, 90, 70, 60, whatever percentage of marks. I want to make sure that I get a very good job, whatever the goals are. I want to get a very high-paying job. The thing that I've known is entrepreneurship helps you reach for the stars. It helps you actually think about bigger things than what you can actually do. And I've always noticed that whenever you try to reach for the stars, you at least hit the moon halfway down. You're better off actually trying to reach for the stars and go to the moon than trying to climb Nandi Hills and actually end up only halfway down to Nandi Hills, because the goals that you set for yourself as an entrepreneur are much, much larger. The last closing statement I just I'll make, is just close your eyes, go do it. There is a lot of people here to help you. The ecosystem right now for startups and entrepreneurship is a lot more. People are always excited to talk to entrepreneurs, but people are not so excited to talk about people who are working in much larger companies, not because of anything else, but because what an entrepreneur does is try and go against all the odds to build something great. So that's the parting statement that I would make for you. Don't worry about it. My case for you always is take my own example, take Sri's example, take all the entrepreneurs that we've seen. They always start early and they keep going at it. Thank you. I'm going to turn it now to Sri.
Thank you, Mukund. As always, lots of energy and thought-provoking right there. Before we jump in, why don't we let Pallab have his say, and then we can go ahead.
Okay. So thanks, Mukund. And here are my points. As I said, I'm here to speak about, success, but success at whose cost? If you have to learn driving and you have a beautiful car, you just bought it, would you try that? Or if you have a good friend, borrow the car from him and learn driving, and after you have learned at least some skills, then get your new car which you bought with your own money, or maybe your father has gifted you, you try that. Which looks a better option? So I would like to start with the first thing. Being an entrepreneur is a different ballgame. You cannot find solutions. You cannot find solution to problems with the same thinking that created them in the first place, as somebody said. So, at the end of the day, when you start an enterprise has a similar character, big or small. Just like every human being, there are certain commonalities. I strongly believe that, enterprise is the same. There are certain commonalities in enterprise, and you must learn how to run an enterprise. And therefore, my pitch is to learn the trick and then go and do it. Even as you can see Mukund's career, though he is an entrepreneur, he had worked in a number of organizations. And I'm sure if you ask him in the question and answer session that some of his best learnings would have come from his stint in his organization. So therefore, my points are, why don't we, as soon as you pass out of the college, why don't you join an organization? Even if you want to become an entrepreneur, you should do that. The first thing, as I said, they don't teach you to manage real people. And that's the biggest difference in, as we see it in developed countries versus developing countries, at least in India. If you have to do a program, you have to study a graduation, then master's, and then post-graduation. By and large in India, you will be sponsored by your parents. You go to a school. And unfortunately, being associated with a number of management schools today where I teach organizational behavior in human resource management and sit in many boards, unfortunately, the biggest problem is they don't teach you how to manage real people. And especially if you are in an engineering school in India, the situation is, far worse. And I have been in this field for the last 24 years. So I have been doing this for last maybe 22 years of my life, recruiting young engineers from various campuses. Oh boy, I don't think there is a big change which has happened in last so many years in terms of, how do you manage real people? Because at the end of the day, enterprise is not a technology. Enterprise is not a building you have. Enterprise is not the beautiful furnitures or the lush green lawns or the beautiful buildings you have. Enterprise at the end of the day are people. And you make or break it only with people. So organization is a place where you learn how to manage people. You watch how people are managed. You watch how you are being managed by your seniors. Last week, I had about 110 graduates in my own organization, Citrix. They joined. And there were many who said that they want to become an entrepreneur. And therefore, I told them, even if they want to become an entrepreneur, it's a good time for them to give the best to the organization, and in lieu of that, learn how the people are managed. So I don't think in Indian context, even though there are stronger ecosystem, for example, NEN is there. One of their motto is to create entrepreneurs. It's much better than maybe 10, 15 years back. Remember, Sri and I worked together. Those days, I don't think there were many entrepreneurs, though I have seen many of my colleagues have become good entrepreneurs. But still, I think you need to join an organization because you really learn how to manage real people. How many of you know to start an organization in India, and in spite of a very favorable ecosystem, unfortunately in India, it's not easy to start an organization. The numbers of rules and regulations, and even if you are from a technology field, you want to start a technology organization, you want to register a company, and then you have to get the licenses. It's a big job. I have personally helped at least half a dozen entrepreneurs to set up their shops. They have been extremely successful as a technologist, but when it comes to looking at, for example, Shops and Establishment Act, how many of you know that it is required when you start a venture? What do you do? It's unfortunately in India is not as simple as it looks like. So how do you know how to run the other functions? If you are a technologist and you want to start a startup, how do you know how your finance is done, how your facilities is done, how your logistics is done? And therefore, I think that's all that you can learn from an organization. The last thing what I ask is, do you know your career anchor? How do you know you are an entrepreneur? Dr. H. Shen in late 80s from MIT has done this work. He tried to find out what is that anchors people in their career. Are you really an entrepreneur? Is that what you want to do? And therefore, that's what you need to kind of figure it out. So, do you know your career anchor? I think if you work for a couple of years in the organization, you will know whether you want to be really an entrepreneur, really want to succeed as an entrepreneur. So therefore, it's a unique opportunity for you to work for an organization and know the other side of the world so that you can make a final choice and take a greater risk to become an entrepreneur. So that's all I have to say in my defense. Why don't you join an organization, learn the trick, be sure about yourself, know how things are managed, and then start your own.
Thank you, Pallab. Before we throw the floor open to question, maybe we can have a little clarify a couple of things, because obviously, firstly, thank you to both Mukund and yourself. You've taken a very clear and a very strong position, which makes the discussion that much more interesting. So let me start with the question, Pallab. You said, look, in terms of for one of us, each of us to understand a career, in terms of for each of us to understand a career, working someplace would help. My question is, working someplace might tell you what you don't want to do. Someplace might tell you that you don't want to be an entrepreneur. But is it really going to tell you that you want to be an entrepreneur?
As I said, sometime, as I have seen my own experience of last 24 years where I talk to a lot of people, because I see a lot of people unsure about themselves, it's like saying that, it's going to a restaurant where you have a description of something. And then, you order that food. And many a times in United States, at least, they give you a photograph. In India, you don't, you are not India, you won't see that, the description. And description is very difficult, just to judge. So I have seen people who have said that they want to become an entrepreneur. When they come inside the organization, sometimes they realize that, no, it's not their cup of tea. They want to become a manager. So at least you are sure. Or on the other side, there are people I've seen who are very sure about themselves. And once they join the organization, though possibly they love this team, but they know for sure it's not their long-term career. So only when you see the other side of the, other side of the river, you know that, okay, I'm sure and I make a definite choice.
Two of the most important decisions we make in our life. Do I want to get married and do I want to have children? Especially the latter, much like Mukund says, we just seem to do it. I mean, you don't seem to get the experience first. I can't go work in a corporation, be a parent for a little while. Do you think that does not apply for entrepreneurship? Mukund, can you feel that?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to, coming back to the question that you asked, does it apply or does it not apply to entrepreneurship? I think the most important criteria for most entrepreneurs is they will find out that any amount of reading, experience, watching, learning from somebody else doing it doesn't actually give you the actual feel of actually doing it yourself. Coming back to the example Dr. Pallab brought about, which was, do you want to drive your car, buy a car and drive it? Or do you want to be able to drive your friend's car? I mean, most of my friends won't let me drive their car. That's a joke, but I'm always the kind of person who believes that the best thing to do is buy a second-hand car and drive it. So what I mean by that in this context is that you try something small, see if you can get it working. The only way you're going to find out these different rules that Dr. Pallab brought about, such as Shops and Establishment Act, TDS, service tax, etc., such as PAN card, TAN card, etc. The only way you're going to find all these things out is if you do it yourself. Any amount of reading about it, any amount of learning about it on the web, or any amount of learning about it from books is not going to be able to actually give you that perspective of remembering. As most people say, I remember a lot of things that I do, but I don't remember a lot of things that I actually read.
Thank you, Mukund. The good news is there are lots of questions coming in. I think rather than just the three of us talk, I think it'd be good to begin to field some questions that people are asking and take it from there. Once again, thank you for taking very clear positions. Hopefully we will learn in the BuzzGain as well, and maybe even switch positions by the end of the conversation. So I hand it over to Sneha who will let us field questions.
We are starting up with the Q&A session, and all the attendees who want to ask a question are requested to raise their hands, and you will be given audio options. Our first question is from Saraswat Sarkar. Yes, Saraswat, yes, you can ask your question.
Yes, sir. I would like to ask the question as Mukund sir pointed out that we should first walk in some organization before starting to learn and manage the people. I completely agree with that, but my question is that how to learn the things, because the organization I would be getting into, I would get into a ongoing organization and not a startup firm. So how to learn the basics of starting up from an ongoing firm? That is my question. Because at the end of the day, I'll have to start up myself.
Shashwat, I actually took the position that you should go and start yourself, and that's one of the arguments I make for why you should start yourself. Because if you go join a larger organization, there are two options. Yes, there are many options, obviously, in front of everybody. Option number one is you start your own company. Option number two is you go to a big company, and option number three is you go to a smaller company. If you do not want to do option number one, which is you do not want to start your own company, then the closest thing that will help you start your own company eventually is going to be a much smaller company where you can actually learn from maybe the CEO himself or maybe the founders themselves as to the list of things that you need to be able to learn before you go start your own company. But going to a larger company, I would say, is probably not going to get you any closer to being an entrepreneur for the next few
Yes, sir, that
decades.
is what I mean, because
yes.
Being in an organization which is already started up, say 10 or 15 years back, so they would not be actually sticking to the prelims. They would be actually expanding or doing something that is for the management of the people and for the growing of the organization. But actually learning it to start up from a big organization would not be possible.
I agree with you, Shashwat. I think this question is probably better for Mr. Pallab, because I am with you. I'm completely in your position.
Sure,
I think that the best thing to do is that. So let me turn it over to Dr. Pallab. Sri, do you want to ask Dr. Pallab to answer the question instead?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's always about a conviction. It's always about a conviction of one carries. I have seen people, and I have worked with people who are very successful entrepreneurs whom I have recruited from campus. Not one, many, hundreds. Okay, and I currently work with a couple of young CEOs, and I coach them, and I know they started their they started their career in organizations. So it's very important in what you want to learn. As I was sharing with you, my own experience for last 24 years in India, unfortunately, the education system is such, it doesn't teach you how to manage people. The best you learn about managing people is only when you go and organize a fest in your college. To best of my knowledge, I've seen the people, they really start managing something when they manage the, the college fest. You just don't have ever manage the real people system. And as I said, managing enterprise means managing people. You can't show me a single good, successful enterprise where people are not well managed. So therefore, what I say that when you work in an organization, be it a big or be it a small, but I would tend to agree with Mukund, you need to be very clear what kind of organization we do. But look at the vast majority. Entrepreneurship is not so easy. Most of what you learn from your parents, most of in India, the social pressure is to work for an organization. Social pressure is, so there is hardly anything available from your parents who could come and talk to you and, tell you, give you the advice. So that's the reason I always believe it's the organization. I just give you a real life example and end my answer. I have just met a guy who we have taken, and he's from one of the good engineering schools, and he told me very clearly that 3 years down the line he wants to start off his own organization. And as Mukund said, he told me that he started something when he was in 3rd year in the college, but when he started the organization he failed. He realized that his learning is not complete, especially other than the technology, he has not learned anything, and there is not much available in terms of where he can learn. And managing people is something, as I definitely say, that you need to see it from a very close photo, and also need to see that how you are being managed. That gives you a lot of knowledge. At least even if you are mismanaged by your boss, that gives you some learning that this is not the way I will manage when I start an enterprise.
Yes, thank you, Pallab. Yes, thank you, Pallab. Okay, our next question is from Dheeraj Bhaskar.
Yeah, my question is that they said that you need to start when you're in 20s, when your risks are low and when you have the strength and the time to actually do your efforts. But how do you get the knowledge, like the finance stuff and the legalities when you're just in your 20s?
So I think there are lots of things that almost all of us do not know about starting companies. I have started 3 companies and I'm still learning on an ongoing basis. The field of law, the field of accounting, the field of finance, the field of human resources, the field of growing, managing professional leaders is always changing, always growing, and always increasing. So there is no way that you're going to be able to learn 100% of it at all. The way I would so the question I would phrase it as, if you don't know, go learn it just in time. You will make mistakes, but you're better off learning by making mistakes than by learning by watching somebody do it and tell you this is how it's done. So I think the philosophy that most people have, I believe, is learn by making mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes because all of us make mistakes all the time. So the way to be able to learn when you do not have knowledge about the legal, about finance, my suggestion is build yourself good partnerships. Get people who you can get recommended to you by other entrepreneurs. Build yourself a good network of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs will recommend good finance people, good legal people, good HR people, and they will be able to build your network. So one of the key things that you need to do is to build a very strong and good network of people who you can trust, who you can learn from, and who you can go to with questions. So that is the best way to learn. My question would be rephrased as, how do I learn and who do I learn the things that I don't know, as opposed to I don't want to start because I don't know these things. Thank you.
The question is from Mudit Kadla.
Yeah, see, I started working around 6 years back after school. And I worked with, I started up I was part of 3-4 startups and all web-based. But I've always faced a lot of issues and problems raising funds, and to be able to make myself financially fit, to be able to, this still is a struggle for me to be able to continue what I want to do and still be able to be financially sound as of now at this age. And I'm thinking of another startup, but I am not really clear with the idea, but I feel there's a market. And what should I do? Should I just go in for it? Should I just go in on my gut feeling, or how should I go about this?
So Mudit, what I would say is, right now, more than ever, there are a lot of ways for you to be able to validate your idea before you actually build an entire company and so on. Let me give you 3 examples of ways that I would do it. Most entrepreneurs do go by gut, but I would recommend that you search online for lean startup methodology and look for more ways to be able to validate your market need and the idea itself before you actually go about starting to build your company and build your product. 3 examples on how I would do it. Number 1, simple example is go to Google AdWords, place a few ads, place it for about 500 rupees or so, spend very small amount of money to see if people are actually clicking on those specific things that you think they would need. The biggest way to validate that is to be able to make sure that you put a few ads. If people click and they come to a site that says I'm interested in this, that means people are interested. Second way I would validate is there is something called consumer insights. If you go and type consumer insights, you can do a free survey tool. SurveyMonkey is one tool, Wufoo is another tool. You can put together a few set of questions, let's say 5 or 6 questions about the problem that you're trying to solve for your potential customers. Send it to a few of your customers to ask them to fill out the survey and see what results you get. Is what you're trying to do really a problem for them? Are they willing to give you money to solve that problem? Are there enough people in this world, in your market segment, that are willing to be able to pay for it? That is when you can be confident that what you're trying to solve as a problem is really the way to do it. The third way is I use a very simple methodology that I did even before. Very, very simple. If let's assume I was going to go ahead and build something that a lot of college students needed. I would just go to the college cafeteria. I'd call about 10 or 20 people together. I'd buy them coffee. It's very, very cheap anyway. And keep what is called a focus group. Have all of them give you advice and feedback based on your product. Assume that you want to be able to sell this product to them and ask them questions about it as opposed to trying to sell it to them itself. Ask them, would they buy this product? What is their real problem? Do they like this kind of solution? Those are the three ways to validate your market need and your products fit to the market need even before you launch your product. So I would say use the easier route, use some validation tools, do the Google AdWords, for example, use surveys, use focus groups, talk to a lot of your potential customers before you start building the product. Shri, I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you, Mukund. Splendid. Did that answer your question?
See, I've always faced this question. This answer somehow helped me, but I've faced a lot of issues raising money or even convincing my parents to give me the startup capital, or I don't know how to get that fund coming in which would support me in the initial days. And let's suppose I want to open an apparel store, and can I use the money selling? I mean, let's suppose I invest 2 lakh rupees and I get products worth 2 lakh rupees, and then I sell that for around 3 lakh. I mean, can I rotate the money? How should I go? How should I go about it? Or what should I do to be able to be very sure about the idea? I don't have. I mean, should I speak to more people, or should I also have a mentor who's there to guide me through always, or something like that?
Okay, this is Shri Krishna. I mean, you asked about 6 questions in that one question. I will try to field 2 of them. All right, let's take 2 ends. Item 1 is, I think if you go back to the very beginning of Mukund's presentation when he spoke about it, and in the example you cited of an apparel, the best thing to do is indeed, and it doesn't have to be 2 lakh made to 3 lakh. If you buy for 20,000 and make it to 30,000, at least if if not a single other human bought it, right? At least you know you're not doing something right. The fact that you sell 30,000 doesn't necessarily mean you have a business. Then can you do it at 50,000 and 2 lakh and what have you? So so I think definitely getting in the water to swim is the equivalent of buying and selling what you're trying to do. So in a software space, when we say, have a landing page, try to see if people will give you your email address. In the apparel space, you can jolly well do. So you don't have to open a store. You don't go to a mall and get a floor space. But can you sell in your college? Can you sell outside of college? So that's one part of it. What that tells you is it likely to work? The last question that you asked, which is, can I have a mentor? In one sense, this is a way to have your cake and eat it too. That is to listen to both Pallab and to Mukund. So Mukund is saying, hey, get started. And this is a way to get started. Pallab is saying, how do you get the experience? A mentor is a great way to get the insight of another person, right? And especially if that person's worked both in startups or run their own startup. It's a great way. As long as this is just like advice your parents give. You still decide which to take and which not to take. Similarly, with your mentor, there's a choice that you have. So I think these 2 things, when you try to marry these 2 things, one, get down and try to do something. And in your case, the apparel case, I would see, can I move t-shirts, or everybody moves t-shirts, or whatever it is that you're trying to do in apparel. And the other side of it is, I would certainly try to rope in someone at the very least to advise you, or if someone, or even find a partner to try and validate for you. That is what I would do.
Okay, the next question is to Srini.
I'd like to ask that, I was privileged enough to be connected to a lot of people through NEN, and the entrepreneurship people, they tell me scale down your idea, but I feel that I can execute it. So do you think I should go ahead and get my hands down and dirty and execute the idea first, and then see whether it is possible by me or not, or listen to them, heed to them, and wait until go step by step and reach the final idea? But I'm afraid if I do it that slow, that much of time might not be on my hands.
My suggestion to you would be, there's always a dichotomy or a challenge between thinking too small, thinking too big, executing small, and executing big. I'll give you a statement that I learned from John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco, a long time back, which I still think holds very, very true. He said to be successful, you have to start small, think big, scale fast. Let me repeat that again. He said, think big, start small, scale fast. So what people are telling you, both things at the same time. I mean, there's no end of the amount of advice that you will get from people. The key important point is to make sure that you get somebody that you can trust and you can listen to who has been in your shoes before. Every big idea started small, so I think what everybody's trying to tell you to a large extent is start executing on smaller ideas and keep executing them very, very well. Show forward progress towards a larger goal. The unfortunate part is even if you have a very large goal, what a lot of people call BHUGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, every one of those BHUGs also takes small steps towards their execution. So start getting some wins. With more wins, you will get more confidence. So set some very, very easy to achieve, at the same time very valuable and useful milestones. For example, shipping the product, getting the customer, making sure that you can have cash flow positive. A few other milestones like that and work towards your vision might be a much better approach. Especially these days, and especially in software and internet, almost every company is trying to execute a very small, specific set of things in a very short period of time to see if there's traction at their speed. If there is none, then they'll go on to the next thing. So I think keep yourself very flexible, execute a small idea, keep milestones for yourself so you know that after you achieve this first step, what are the next 2 or 3 steps that you can go ahead and achieve, and what are the milestones associated with that. So go back to the point again that I said that Chambers always used to teach all of us, think big, start small, scale fast. So once you start small and you've got very big and ambitious ideas, figure out a way to be able to get to a point of leveraging those ideas, getting a lot of people to help you and achieve that big vision and dream. Sri, back to you.
Thank you, Mukund. That encapsulated the whole thing. And I think Pallab will also agree here. This formula works even when you work somewhere, not just on your own business. Especially when you're new at a job, I think people are open to your ideas, but you start small, and most importantly, you show results. And then you can, other people will support you to scale, and you'll be able to achieve your big results. So thanks for that, Mukund. We'll take the next question.
Next question is from Dinesh. We couldn't hear him, so he sent his question. This question is to Mukund sir. Said he started working in startup from his 8th standard. Whenever I want to start something in college, then people say to get good grades, then you so startup. So my question is how important it is to get good grades in college.
Okay, this is Mukund. It is always important to get good grades, not because the grades themselves are important, but it is because you've got to be able to do the best you can possibly do in everything. That's my philosophy at least. I may not be good at a lot of subjects, I may not be good at all of the subjects, but the subjects that I really like and enjoy and I believe they are very, very valuable, I always do well in. So I think the question of grade does not have that much of a bearing, if you will, on future, what you end up actually doing. But whatever you do a phenomenal job of it would be my recommendation. Do it such that it's the only thing that you want to do very, very well at. So the only thing you have to do as a student is get good grades. That's all you need to do. Besides that, I know we're all going around trying to hang out with other people, have a lot of friends and all of that stuff. But as a student, the biggest responsibility, or the biggest job you have, if you will, is getting good grades, working at it and getting good grades. Now that being said, the grades do not have a material impact. It has been proven by research that grades do not have a material impact to a large extent of how successful you end up being in life. But a lot of successful people have been early achievers. They've taken early successes, such as getting grades in good schools, and then translating that to bigger successes in life. What good grades tell people is that you have, number one, discipline. You have the ability to do hard work, because getting good grades across in all subjects takes a lot of hard work. I mean, everybody realizes that. Even if you're the most smartest person, you'll realize that working hard at it just makes those grades go a lot more easier. So what good grades tells everybody else is that you're disciplined, you're willing to work hard, and you're willing to be able to do what it takes to get to the next level, to get to the 80% or distinction or 90% or whatever it is that you have to do. So getting good grades, guys, by the way, there is no compromise on that. You've got to be able to do phenomenally well, because that is the primary thing you're doing as a student. And again, I temper that by saying you will get good grades and that is good, and you should feel proud of the achievement because your parents will feel proud. They're making sacrifices to have you go to school. You're making sacrifices and doing things that you would rather be doing at that point of time. But it does not have a significant bearing on your success going forward. So get good grades, don't compromise on that, but realize that that is what it's teaching you is discipline, hard work, and persistence. Is not teaching you that you're smart. Back to you, Shri.
This question is from Amit. He says, in initial stage, what type of company can I start outside of college if I'm studying?
This is Shri Krishna here.
Yeah, this is Shri Krishna here. So I think the best answer to your question, when we look at all the students who are starting companies, we find invariably they start something that is of interest to them. They're interested in web design, they start a web design firm. They collect shoes, they do custom shoes. Somebody doesn't find enough non-veg food, they decide to open a non-veg cafeteria. And what we find, and Mukund's point of doing first and learning by doing, I think anything that you're going, just like the grades. When you don't like a subject, it's very hard to work hard and get the subjects that you want. So the best business to start is a business that you would still be interested a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, that you would like to do. I mean, you may change your mind, but the best businesses that we find when students, especially when they're not sure if this is what they want to be doing, is to start something around something that they already enjoy. So I will let Pallab and Mukund, if they want to add something, add to that.
Yeah, I think, Sri, I tend to agree with you. There are two ways, as I said. A lot of people want to sort of just draw a parallel between what Mukund said, start small and then scale. So a lot of people I have seen, they do business exactly in their areas of interest primarily because that's what drives them. I have seen people, and Pradeep Khandwala talks about that. He talks about a very particular motive, and he researched that, and I found it very relevant for the Indian context. He talks about a motive called PI motive. The P stands for pioneering and I stands for innovative. It's a combination of two things, that I want to be pioneer in something, and that's mostly, and obviously it has to be innovative. So that motive drives students. A lot of students I've seen to start their startups while they're in the college, and I see especially some of the places, especially IIT Mumbai, and I have seen off late in NIT Surathkal has been a kind of a place where I've seen students, even in their third year, they sort of starting something. But a lot of places I have seen students also, what they do is they pair up with some of the seniors, or they work with somebody whom they know. So it's a group of people who start an endeavor where the students take the back-end kind of a role. And I think that's also pretty interesting, because when you take a back-end role, you get a lot of time to watch others, maybe somebody who's a leader, maybe somebody whom you admire, maybe somebody in the family. So I've seen that trend too. So that's also an interesting way of, learning while starting something and also kind of continuing the study.
Thank you, Pallab. Our next question is from Manoj Patel.
Yeah, so I would like to ask, what are the minimum number of employees one can define or one should have to be eligible to start a company, right, to fulfill their salary and organization expenses?
Question: what is the minimum number of employees one needs to start a company to be able to meet their salary and other expectations? Was that the question?
Yes, correct.
So this is Mukund. I don't think there are any minimum per se. Most people that I have seen that start companies out of college either start it on their own with one person, or usually it is 2 or 3 co-founders, or 2 or 3 or 4 people together that start a company. So there is no minimum requirement. To start a company in India, you need 2 directors. What they call is both of these directors are directors of the company itself. So in most cases, when there is only one founder, then his father or brother or somebody who's older usually will be a director in the company along with them. But if there are two people in the company who are co-founders, then they will both become directors of the company. So now going back to the specific case of why you don't need more than one person, a lot of companies these days are being built with a very lean and small organization. I think the number of people you have in the company should maybe be a metric for a certain number of companies that are interested in growing the size of the company and building a services organization. But there are a lot of opportunities such as software companies, such as non-linear growth with mobile application companies that can be built by one or two people, and you don't need to have hundreds if not thousands of people in the company. The metrics that you should look for should be more the company's turnover or revenue, should be the company's profit or gross margin and net margin, and the number of employees should probably not be a metric initially for you to worry about. You know, amazing things can be even done by one individual with a lot of passion and with the ability to spot a problem and change the solution, provide a solution that changes the problem. So my suggestion is don't look for any minimum number. If you have one other person with you, that's great. If you have 2-3 other people with you, that's better. If you have just yourself, that's also fine. Just jump into it and get yourself a good list of advisors and mentors and have them help you through the process.
Thank you, Mukund. Our next question is from Lloyd.
Okay, basically in short, I have already taken the plunge and I've been trying to start up something of my own in the past 1 year. I've been developing a product. I've got good reviews and feedback for the product from potential clients. Now I'm almost on the verge of completion, and what I need to know is, should I look out for investors and try and scale fast, or should I start small, go one step at a time and slowly build my business?
I will certainly request the other panelists to answer as well, but before that I have a question back for you. So you said you built a product and you said there's been good feedback, but has anyone actually paid money to buy this product or to use this product?
Yes, I have customers who have paid for it, but no, it's not a lot, but yeah, I have them.
Okay. So the answer to your question is depends, and what I mean by that is, if the product is a physical product and will involve working capital because every copy you make requires you to get more money to build it, the answer may be different. Plus, or if the product has no incremental cost.
Okay. No.
So the real question is also, what is it that you want to do? As in, you know, if it's a matter of only making money, as in I sell a product and I make money, there's any number of possibilities depending on, you know, can somebody easily copy this, which means you create the market and you get some customers. I come along and I take all the customers for you having discovered a market and a customer, in which case how you want to move will be very different than if you feel, hey, somebody else is not going to catch up, so I can actually charge more for it. So the short answer is it depends on the nature of your product and what you're trying to do. And again, I'm not sure in the next 1 minute we'll be able to answer, but I'll ask others to answer this question, and we are happy to take this question offline, because short answer is it depends on what is it that you want to accomplish. Mukund, do you want to? Okay.
So
I know Mukund has to,
I'll give you the
yeah,
1 minute answer that I always, sure, the 1 minute answer that I'll give you is, it's a very difficult decision to make whether you take money from outside or you continue to what we call in the industry bootstrap and go on your own. There are 3 specific criteria that external investors will look for. Number 1, the first criteria is, are you targeting a very large market? Meaning, is there a potential for your company to be very, very big? So you have to be very clear in articulating that. The second criteria is, can you scale very, very fast in a short period of time? In a 3 to 5 year horizon, can you have significant revenues? And usually the benchmark that a lot of investors, institutional investors such as venture capitalists, angel investors would look for is $100 million revenue by 3 to 5 year time frame. That is the second criteria. Not only should the market be big, they want you to scale very, very fast. The third one is, are you comfortable in getting advice and taking advice from a lot of people in building your company, or do you believe that you pretty much know what you need to get done and you just need the money? Typically, when you get investors, they have their own criteria. They tend to have their own selection requirements. They also have their own specific sets of things that they've learned. So they'd like to be able to help you build the company. But if you're the kind of person that feels, I know what I'm doing, I just need money, then getting an external investor may not do you any good. So those three criteria are important. Go after a great market. If you need to scale fast, then take money. If you're willing to be able to take advice from other people to build your company, then that would be the three criteria I would use to even say you're ready for investment versus not. That being said, nearly 85% of companies in this world have not taken external investment. So you can definitely build a large company successfully on your own without having to take investment or funding from outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the panelists for the interesting session. This was the last question of the day, and thank you to all our attendees for participating. The questions did keep coming, but we've run out of time. So please send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar, the panel discussion, will be available on our website eclub.nenonline.org by the end of this week. Our next webinar will be held on August 1st from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. by Vikas Verma of the Color Factory on practical tips and guidance on how to plan your entrepreneurial journey. We look forward to your participation. Also, NEN Eclub is starting a series of workshops across India. The first workshop is on July 28th at New Delhi on the topic Pivoting Your Venture and Getting to Plan B. The format of the workshop includes group work, exercises, and interaction with our guest entrepreneur to avail real-time perspectives. Register today and get early bird discounts. For more information, visit our website. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.